great day for work here at the Happy Healthy Workplace podcast. I'm Kimberly Ficklin, your host. And every week we talk to professionals just like you all around the world because we want to find out what they do to create a profitable business, the kind of business where people really want to work. Today we're speaking with Mark Mohammadpour from Chasing the Sun. Mark Mohammadpour, APR, is a strategic communications executive, certified personal trainer, and health coach. His company, Chasing the Sun, offers health coaching tailored for those who work from home and want to lose weight on their terms. Mark spent most of his public relations career at Weber Shandwick and Edelman. Throughout his career, Mark led integrated communications programs for more than a dozen global brands, including Adobe, AMD, Microsoft, Samsung, and the U.S. Army. Mark also served as a Public Relations Society of America Oregon chapter president in 2016. In 2017, Mark became an American Council on Exercise certified personal trainer, and in 2018 became an ACE certified health coach. In 2007, Mark started a journey that led him to lose more than 110 pounds over 9 months, and is proud to have kept that off since. He is determined to help others lose weight and live a lifestyle that will benefit themselves and those around them. Hello, Mark. How are you doing today?
Kimberly, I'm doing really well. Thank you for having me on. How about you?
I am doing wonderful as well, Mark. As good could be expected in the chaos that is today. But I welcome you and I'm excited to have you on the podcast. I know that this is going to be a really great and very interesting episode for people to listen to on a variety of levels. We already discussed kind of what we'd be talking about today. So we're going to go in a bunch of different places, but they're all going to basically circle back around to the same thing, which is total health, I think, in the workplace. And we're going to let Mark talk to us about what he knows best, which is working virtually, staying healthy while working virtually. He's going to talk to us a little bit about how he lost a bunch of weight despite the fact that he sat in front of a computer at home. And then we're going to talk about, of course, current events and how coronavirus or COVID-19 is affecting our workplaces right now and some of the ways that we can be supportive of each other. So again, welcome, Mark. And what I want to start with today is first just share with us what brought you to do what you do today.
Yes, thank you, Kimberly, for having me on. Today, I am a health coach. I help people lose weight and keep it off. Most of my clients work from home. Most of them are public relations, communications, and marketing professionals. My company is called Chasing the Sun. I launched it in September 2019. So I am a little bit over 6 months in. This came about because by trade, I have been a public relations professional my entire career. I worked at 2 public relations agencies, one called Weber Shandwick and one called Edelman. I worked with companies all around the world to help them meet their communications objectives and ultimately their business objectives. In the first part of my career, I was getting promoted. I was traveling a lot. And Kimberly, I don't know if you remember your time growing up as a professional, the idea of being able to do business travel and expensing meals and all of that. It was very exciting. You got to go stay in fancy hotels and go to trade shows and go to exotic places. And I think between that and the workload and me maturing as a person and not really knowing how to manage all of that, I started taking care of my health less and less. And it got to a point where, from a number standpoint, I was 350 pounds, and this was in 2007. And so from a scale perspective, it was bad. I was wearing large clothes. I was not able to shop at the places I wanted to go to wear what I wanted to wear. What I was feeling, Kimberly, was much worse. I had trouble sitting in a chair in a restaurant. I had a challenge sitting in a coach seat while on an airplane. I had sleep apnea at night where it was very difficult for me to breathe. My personality, my attitude changed. I'm a glass half full person, Kimberly. I have a lot of yellow around me, literally in the home office I'm in. I'm drinking out of a yellow cup of water. I think of things in a very positive way. But when I was 350 pounds, I was really miserable. I could sense it. My colleagues could sense it. My family could sense it. And I knew I needed to make a change, but I needed something. I needed a moment to really help me turn the tide. That happened when I proposed to my now wife, Christine. And that was in December 2007. I was very fortunate. She said yes. And over the course of the following 9 months, from December 2007 to September 2008, I started making some small changes. I really started to examine what was in my control. I looked at my breakfast. I realized that I was consuming 1,000 calories before 8 a.m. I made some changes. I cut my caloric intake by 70% with breakfast alone. I started looking at my lunch and dinner. I started doing some testing. I started realizing that if I stopped eating late at night, that it's less hard on my stomach. I'm able to wake up better. My digestion is better. And so I slowly started to lose weight. I started feeling more confident when it came to exercise and be able to complete exercises. So sure enough, Kimberly, over 9 months, I managed to lose 110 pounds.
Wow.
And yeah, I look back and I just wish I had a diary. I wish I had written out how I managed to do that. But it was this gradual progression, and I was able to see results. I was able to see people respond favorably to it. It was incredible. Between 2008 and 2017, I had managed to keep it off for the most part. I gained a few pounds, I lost a few more. I kind of yo yoed, but I never went back up above 270 pounds. By the time 2017 hit, I was really thinking about my journey. I was thinking about the fact I had kept this weight off for so long, that it was rare. And I was thinking about my legacy. I was thinking about my family. My dad had just passed away. He was very much into fitness. And I was thinking about him. And I was chatting with a friend who suggested that I learn how to be a certified personal trainer just to go through the process. So I did that. I went through that certification. I passed it in the end of 2017. Then I studied to become a health coach, both of these certifications through the American Council on Exercise. It's the organization where if you're going to be a personal trainer at any gym, it's a minimum requirement to have. So I was going through this process, Kimberly, and I got certified, but I was still working full time. I was not taking on any clients. I had not started a business. But I was thinking about, what am I going to do with this information? What am I going to do with this story? And then I was starting to think about my profession, Kimberly. So the profession of public relations, and even though I'm not active in that profession right now, I still consider myself a public relations professional. I have a lot of friends and former colleagues and people I talk to in that profession. It's a very stressful one. Right now, it's an extremely stressful time for them.
Mm.
But day in and day out, it is ranked as one of the most stressful professions out there, alongside air traffic controllers and pilots and surgeons. And whether or not PR people should be deemed one of the more stressful professions out there, the reality is that if they perceive it, it's true, right? I started thinking about this. I started thinking about my relationship with the professional organizations for public relations. There's one called Public Relations Society of America that I've been a part of for a long time. I was president of a local chapter here in Oregon State. The pieces started to click. I was like, I have this story. I want to be able to help people thrive in this profession. I really care about people in this profession. And so the opportunity came late last year in September 2019 for me to launch a company called Chasing the Sun, which really allows me to work with people not only in the public relations and communications and marketing profession, but now it's really broadened out to look at people who work from home. Because most of my clients work from home. I have some who aren't even in PR or communications, but they work from home, they work remotely. I've made it my mission to help people make themselves a priority in an industry where they're constantly putting themselves last. It's been a journey that's taken 10 years, Kimberly, and it's just been a wonderful ride. And I look forward to seeing where it goes from here.
It's a great story, Mark. When Mark and I met, we actually were introduced by a colleague. And I never even asked you, Mark, why Mac decided that you needed to meet me. He must be really good at connecting people
I think
because,
he's very good at connecting people. Yes.
yeah, yeah. I forgot when we stopped chatting on driving home, I was like, I wonder what Mac did say to have him reach out to me. But at any rate, we speak a lot of the same language. So that's probably really what it was. And you say things like small changes equal big results. That's how
Yeah.
you did it. I, for years, was a certified nutritionist. I mean, I still am a certified nutritionist. if you Google my name, chances are you're going to find a lot of weight loss and health coaching stuff, maybe 2 or 3 pages deep, because I used to do a lot of that stuff as well, called the anti-diet coach. So you and I speak the same language there. Now, I didn't
Mhm.
work specifically with people that worked virtually. I actually worked more with executives who were having to go to work and busy and stressed out. But I'm pretty sure that's why the universe connected us together. Yeah, is because we just have a lot in common and we speak the same language. And that is the language of loving yourself, right? Which most people don't do. And most of us only find out until it's too late, as in your case, when you're overweight, as in
Yeah.
my case, when I'm chronically ill, you know, as in
Mhm.
a lot of cases when things are happening because we're just really not taking care of ourselves. So I think the need for conversations like the ones that you and I have are important, especially for the weight loss part of it. Well, I mean, I know that you and I had discussed, or at least I chatted with you, that some of my biggest challenges with people was that all they cared about was coming to me for weight loss. And what I really want to talk about is your total health and
Yeah.
that your well being and your stress and your anxiety level. And do you sleep well? And do you get the right foods? Getting the right foods in is one piece of the bigger picture, right? So then now I just do that on the grander scale. So now it's just
Mhm.
in the workplace and I'm saying, hey, look, just this isn't enough. We have to look at total worker health. We have to look at people who work from home are different than the people who come to work. We have to motivate these people differently. We have to show up for them differently. We have to create different spaces for them, right? So having conversations with people like you, Mark, who work virtually, who didn't self care, who used the small changes and got big results, it's important for you to have that voice out into the workplace right now to let people understand that there's people who have been there and then there's another side to that as well.
You're absolutely right. And I appreciate the support. It's vital. This profession, and I group together public relations, communications, and marketing. But if you think about all the other service industries, I have clients who are in the finance industry and others, and we're constantly taking care of everybody else. We're constantly putting out fires. And we have other life challenges that are enveloping us. One of the interesting things with my company, and I started working with clients and working on their intake form and getting the information as far as their stresses, thinking about the conversations that I've been having with them over the last 6 months, we talk less about their challenges with work and more about their challenges with their families. They have parents that are getting older. They have children that they're having to take to soccer practice. They have other health challenges. We really don't talk about the stress that their work is giving them. But the reality is that because of the demands of the work, it's putting a strain on all the other challenges in their life. It makes me think about when I was a student in elementary school and thinking about my teachers. Kimberly, I don't know about you, but I always thought of my teachers as these people who just hung out in the classroom all day and night. I didn't think about them as having families and people outside of class.
Right.
They're dealing with stuff all the time. So if they're in a different mood, if they're in a challenging mood, if they seem distracted, it's probably not related to school or, in our case, professional life. It's because they're dealing with other things. It has really been enlightening working with folks over the last few months and really hearing their pain points and understand that they need someone who has been in their shoes, who is understanding what their 9 to 5 is. And I put 9 to 5 in quotes, Kimberly, because we know that's not, but
Right.
their work
Right.
time
Mm-hmm.
and how everything else is really impacting them. And they're bringing it to work, whether it's physically or, in the case of today and what we see for the foreseeable future, virtually. And it is going to be something that has to be dealt with. And that comes with shifting a mindset from the professional and saying, I'm going to take care of myself first. Because if I take care of myself first, I'm going to be able to do better work for my company, my clients, and ultimately be a better parent, son, daughter, whomever, for my family. But people don't think about that way. They think about putting the band-aids and solving all the problems for everyone else. That's not a permanent solution. And that's what I'm trying to do, is get people to a place where they can think about themselves first and be mentally and physically strong to take care of everything else in their life.
So let's go back to virtually working
Yeah.
and some of the things like what's going on right now in our current environment where we have a coronavirus that is making things, workplace especially, a little bit difficult.
Hmm.
And people are working from home more, or actually almost all people are working from home now. I have no idea that I would hear be so important to all of the companies that I've ever signed up for emails about
Right,
how they were going to handle their workplace coronavirus issue. I'm
right.
like, I really don't care how you handle that. But okay, it's kind of funny that that's happened. But it's an interesting thing because it's all saying everybody's working from home. Going back to what you said a minute ago, is that I think it is definitely changing. We are going to have to think about things in a different way. We're going to have to think about virtual working and what that means and what autonomy means and what trust means and all that tied with being agile in our business, right? Just being ever able to, something comes up like this and we talk about how we don't know how to handle this specific thing, right? Because it's brand new. We didn't expect it. We don't really know how to handle it, but we can figure out a way to handle things, anything that comes our way moving forward in the workplace so that that way if we had to mostly work virtually it would work for us. I mean, Mark, we know there's manufacturing, there's things that people have to do physically and there's
Yep.
no way for them to go virtually. But if you are an employer where everybody can go virtual with the exception of your manufacturing facility, then you're in a good place. Saying that we are doing that, let's say we get everybody bought into some type of virtual flexible workspace. What does that mean for worker health in the home, Mark? How
Yeah.
does a workplace affect change in the health of a worker when they work from home?
It's a really, really interesting question because, well, first of all, the sheer process of what's been going on the last few weeks and what will continue to go on the last week, you have this incredible and very rapid mind shift going on as far as people's work environment. They're going from a place they're 100% in an office, or they're 100% traveling, or they might be working a little bit from home or a little bit remotely, but they're in a more traditional environment. And now they're having to completely uproot their situation and it's impacting everything. Everything has to be communicated differently. You have to think about how you're going to communicate things securely. You can't go to coffee shops. First of all, they're not open, but even so, there
Mm-hmm.
are a lot of people with very private information that unless you have a privacy screen, you can't be at a coffee shop. There are a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times I was working from home and sometimes it could be at a coffee shop, but I had to be very careful about where I was being positioned, especially if I had sensitive data. A lot of times I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't even go to a coffee shop because of that situation. So now you have this environment where you're having to think about a lot of factors. And I literally just wrote this on LinkedIn today, just as an example. You have, if we just to look at two groups of people, Kimberly, we could talk for hours about different groups, but if we looked at people who are new managers, newer managers, and the people that they're managing, when just for the sake of this conversation, we think about new professionals. We think about the relationship between those two groups. You have new professionals, I'm going to say people who are just out of school, who've been there a year or two as a professional. They are at this point trying to prove themselves as a professional to their company. And oftentimes they are leaning in, they're working extra hours, they're raising their hand and say, how can I help? Now they're at a point where they're not able to physically see people. They're going to need to really be proactive and really set a standard when they're talking to their manager about what projects are going on. And yes, having video conferencing is really, really important and really key. But when you're not able to see each other for 7, 8, 9 hours a day, like you might be in a typical office environment, it changes the dynamic. It changes the dynamic, just a relationship standpoint, but also just from a shifting time of when you're working standpoint. And these new professionals, they're going to be looking to leadership to be able to say, okay, I'm new to this, help guide me through this. And not to put pressure on these managers, Kimberly, but think about the first managers that you had in your career. Think about what they shaped for you as far as your life and your career are concerned. It could be a sentence they say, it could be an action they did. That these new professionals, they are taking everything in and saying, this is what I need to do. And so, from a manager standpoint, this is a huge opportunity for them to be able to say, okay, I may not have all the answers, but I'm going to do what I think is the right thing to do. And that is to really show up as a professional, set boundaries as far as when you're going to be checking email and when you're not, communicate to your team and say, I'm not going to be sending email late at night, or if I am, it's because we're dealing with this crisis, and just having the understanding that as professionals, we need to work together, but have a very fluid sense of communication. And from a tactical standpoint, Kimberly, that's everything from sending an email that said, this is the rules of the road as it relates to working from home. If you need to, talk to somebody and it's going to take more than 5 messenger conversations or more than 5 Slack notifications, pick up the phone and call. Or I'm not going to send emails on nights and weekends. If I do, I'm going to send you a text and I'm going to let you know that to check your email because we need to talk about something. Something that's agreed on by the entire group so that there is this sense of understanding. Because it's almost as if you're in a completely different work environment than you've been in. And all the rules that you've had, written or unwritten, being in a physical environment are out the window. So from a manager standpoint, this is an opportunity for them. For the new professional standpoint, they really need to think about the fact that they're managers who are more experienced in life, a little bit older, going through some significant life changes of their own, are dealing with their own big changes. Shops are closed, schools are closed. If they're partnered or married, their partner is likely at home as well. So they're going to be working with managers who are not only trying to run a business, run a team, but they're also having all these other distractions. I think this is all saying, Kimberly, the first rule that I talk to people about this all the time is that we have to show each other some grace. We're in a brand new world, and have grace, have empathy, be transparent, and be professional. And if you're able to do those 4 things, that will really help set the stage for a positive experience through what is a really challenging and frankly unwritten time.
So true. So true. And you brought up something that I think is really important to go over again, which is the boundaries. So setting clear expectations, AKA setting your boundaries. And that's everybody as a group and everybody being heard, right? So not just the leader says, hey, look, you're all going to work from this time to this time, and you're going to answer text from this time to this time.
Right.
But it's coming together and listening to what everybody's needs are right now, because they'll be different. Everybody's will be different. Some people have kids who are off of school right now and they're trying to juggle their children at home while they're virtually working. Some people won't have children at home, but they're not used to working. They have a spouse. There's so many, like you said, different variations that the boundaries have to be set. Each person, like you mentioned, agreed upon, right? We've all agreed upon, and it may be that everybody's different. So it's not a one size fits all. Sally needs this, Joe needs this, Kimberly needs this, right? Mark needs this. Okay, can we all agree to that? Yes, we can. I think that's really, really important in this right now, because it is harder to communicate with a team that is virtual, or at least people think it is. So I'm going to back that up. It is not harder, but that's what people think. So therefore, they make it harder. I think that boundaries are very, very important. And I love the point you brought up that it's both sided, right? So how can we work together as a leader looking at supporting your employee, and as an employee looking at supporting your leader? It's hard because we haven't been taught this mostly in the workplace up to this point. It's changing. That's why I have this podcast. That's why Mark and I are talking about this right now. That's why we all talk about it and listen to the things that are being said about changing culture. But what's really important is this time right now where we are having to shift the way that we work is like a huge crack in the workplace, the way that we've done it before. And it's such a great learning experience. I mean, there's going to be a lot of hurt. We're not going to pretend that there won't be pain in this, because there will. There's going to be some financial aspects, and those kind of things that we're not going to gloss over. But if we can look at it in a way that we can build from and learn from and support each other, I think that what we're going to build moving forward in the workplace as a community, as a global community, is going to be just an outstanding thing. And I just think it's really time for us to start thinking about it. It's a good time. Would you not agree?
Kimberly, I cannot agree more, and completely on board with your sentiment. This is a very difficult time, and it's not going to be over for some time. And there's going to be a lot of pain, a lot of physical pain and financial pain and emotional pain that we are not aware of yet. And that's scary. That's really scary to think about. I do think that this is going to change the dynamic of work forever. And there are going to be a number of professionals that are going to learn how to adapt to this way of work. And they're going to organically build trust and learn things that they're going to take with them. And I completely agree with you that I think ultimately, as far as the advancement of how we build teams and build trust and work virtually, it is going to be for the better. If for nothing else, because the communication has to be better. We cannot hide behind poor communication when you're in a physical environment and some people have access to people and be able to have conversations and some don't.
Mm-hmm.
There's no more excuse now. And so we constantly have to think ahead as far as how communication is being handled. And I have to give my hats off to all of the PR and communications people out there that are currently working on this and working with the executives, and the executives themselves having to really think about how they are acting in this time, because everybody is looking at them.
Oh, right? Oh my
Everybody's looking
goodness.
at them.
What a burden right now. It really is.
It is.
I'll take that back. I don't really mean a burden. I just mean, and well, it is.
It's a
It is a burden,
challenge.
but I don't mean it in the way like, oh, everybody's such a burden. I just mean, wow, this
No.
is heavy. It's a very
Yeah,
heavy thing.
it is very, very heavy. And people are having to figure it out and give each other grace and respect. But ultimately, this is going to significantly help improve the communication, which then ultimately leads to the benefits, Kimberly, and why I think you and I are talking. And really, the power of this is that when we're talking about communication, we're talking about building trust, we're building respect. Ultimately, to me, from an individual standpoint, it's about respecting their time. And when it comes to respecting their time, and we're talking about virtual environment, that's when it comes to the point where, as an individual, we can make sure that we are making ourselves a priority from a health standpoint. We can decide and we can block out that time and say, I'm going to work out for that 30 minutes, and I'm going to block out from 11:30 a.m. to noon. And I've talked to my team, and my team has my back, and I'm going to go out for that run, or I'm going to go on my spin bike, or I'm going to take that yoga class on YouTube, or something that is saying, this is my time. And they're going to have the backs of their team later that afternoon or earlier that morning that want to do the same thing. That is really important. And that needs to be part of the normal cadence of discussions and agendas and all the dialogue that happens across teams. Managers need to ensure that their teams are thinking about their health and wellness, and their team members need to raise their hand and say, look, I need some time, or I need to block out some time to be able to do this. And there needs to be a dialogue in understanding that. Because a lot of this ultimately comes down to trust, and the new professionals or any employees realizing that their manager doesn't necessarily have team members or colleagues' schedule in their head or their priority list or
Mm-hmm.
anything
Mm-hmm.
like. Again, this continual dialogue, and we have to evolve how we go about doing that. And I look forward to seeing some of these best practices come to life and seeing new ones being developed as a result, because
And
it's
they
going to
will.
take this evolution. It will. You're absolutely right. It's going to.
Yeah. And you keep bringing up something that I want to touch on is because we talk on the podcast here, we're talking to the business owner, CR, HR director about what you can do to create a happy, healthy workplace. And we don't really talk about the workers taking their own responsibility, their own self responsibility for their own self care, right? So if it's all great and fun and fine and dandy when we're talking about the workplace providing a space for employees to do this or do that or speak about that or speak about this or have the flexibility to work or have an autonomy. On the same respect, that's why I loved your post so much, is that equally at this time, the employees can be looking at what can I do to be more trusted, to
Yeah.
communicate better, to get my needs met, and not expect that my employer just knows what that is. And that's hard. And that's hard, Mark, because we've talked about this a million times on this podcast, is because, coming from old school, you just couldn't say anything in a job. I've been told so many times before, you're lucky to have a job, go back to work. You know what I mean? Because you just
It's
don't
awful.
really have a voice in it. Well, now
Yeah.
we do. Now we do. Because you listen to this podcast, I talk to people all day long that are creating these amazing businesses where people have space to create their own boundaries, to go have self
Mhm.
care, to have flex jobs, to spend time with their kids. So it can be done. However, as individuals, we can't just expect our workplace to do that for us or
Yes,
expect to know what we need from them. So if
correct.
they're offering the space, as many of our employers do now, it's time for us to let the fear that grips us, the shame and the stigma of asking for what we need, put it behind us and just get our needs met. And really, honestly, what that's going to do is that drives our HR people and our CEOs and our business owners to know how to build the culture in their company.
There are two big asks. To me, Kimberly, all this starts with the hiring process. I talk to students and new professionals all the time. And when I give workshops to them and I say, look, one of the things that I highly recommend when you interview places and you speak to HR, but really it's the team that you're working on and specifically the hiring manager, is to extract enough information so you have a sense as far as what the work environment is going to be like. Now, there are no promises about how often or how late at night you'll work and weekends. And especially, again, I'm putting my PR marketing comms hat on. There are no typical 9 to 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
But what I want to get to is a point where the prospective employee and their manager have a general sense of understanding as far as work expectations. Is it a fully virtual environment? Are people expected to be in the office all day? Again, when we get back to that environment, does the manager send mail on nights and weekends? Are there expectations to check email? Are there expectations to work through lunch? What did that look like? I talk to students a lot about getting enough information so that they can make a decision based on what they think their environment is going to be like with their manager. Because I strongly believe, and this has been written a lot about, but people leave managers, not companies. Your experience with the company starts and stops with your immediate manager, the team that you're on, this office you're in, all those environments versus the broader brand. I would love to hear a contrarian view, but I strongly believe that. And I look in the case of big PR agencies like I've worked at, an experience of someone working in Portland, Oregon is going to be very different from Atlanta, Georgia, from Washington, D.C., from Boston, from New York. It ultimately depends on ultimately what's around you. And so having a dialogue is really important. On the hiring manager side, I need them to be prepared to have that discussion. I need them to come into a meeting and really sell the position and be very transparent as far as expectations. Because there is a big mental and physical demand for a lot of these jobs. And that impacts the health and wellness of the employee and ultimately will impact their own health and the quality of work and ultimately their relationship with their employer. And the quicker we can get to that, Kimberly, in the hiring process, the quicker we can get to that once they're hired in the onboarding process, the better the relationship can be. And that's the opportunity for HR, internal comms, the hiring manager and their team to work together in a way that there is a unified message that talks more about the expectation of the job and the opportunities for the employee. I really feel strongly about that. It's going to be even more important in today's virtual landscape.
Yeah, that is very important. It's both good for the employer and the employee.
Absolutely.
I know far too often we have jobs where some people don't even have job descriptions. They don't know what's expected from them, and they don't really know what to expect from their employer.
Yep. Kimberly, once a week, I tell you, I talk to somebody who says, Mark, we have a position open. Do you have a recommendation? And I see a job description and I say, look, you know what you could do, so and so? You could like post a video and post it on LinkedIn and say, hey, I'm so and so. I work for so and so. We're looking for this. I don't want you to say I'm looking for a rock star PR professional. Like, first of all, stop saying that word. What I want them to say is really sell this position. You have 30 seconds. You have a minute. What's your elevator pitch? What's the company? Or if you're working for an agency, what do you need? What do you excel so that I can go and be able to find specific people? Job description with a bunch of bullet points, that does not do it for me. Give me a 30, 60-second video with the hiring manager, and I think that will help cut through quite a bit. I would like to get to that point. I think it's a big ask, but I also think it's a necessary one.
I was going to say, wait, what? Now I have to make a video?
I know.
I always play the CEO or the HR director listening to the podcast, right? Now I hear them saying, "You're kidding me, right? I have to make a
I know.
video?"
I know. But again, this is about the buyer and the seller. This is about not only just the opportunity to work for the company, but the opportunity to work for me as a manager, speaking on behalf of the company. They're a representative of the company. It's an opportunity for them to talk about who they are and what they're looking for, and to attract the people that will fit into that. There's a bigger opportunity there. I think we hide behind job descriptions and automation, and especially where I come from, it's about the relationship and finding the right fit.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of the episode we did with Sarah Goodall, Why CEOs Need to Get Social, where we talked about why it's important right now to, like you said, make a video and get out on social, because your employees are, and they are grading you on social. And if you're not there to say otherwise or show what you do, or it's good or bad, either way. So you want it to be good. And then you also want to back that with your branding. That makes it even better, right? So I'm going to see a bunch of great stuff about this employer, and then I'm going to see this video that really tells me who they are. Some of the people that I've interviewed on this podcast, they do have really great websites like that where you go. I want to say Bolly Welch, I think, has a really great video.
Sure.
Oh, I know Xenium does. Xenium has an amazing video where they videoed a bunch of their employees and put it all together. Great video on their website as well. And
that's
the reason
Brandon
why
Laws and his team there. Yeah, I love Brandon.
Yeah. The reason why I bring that up is because it's very compelling to want to work there when the employees, and it's unscripted. You can tell. I don't think they paid anybody to get on the video. I think they really mean it. It seems sincere, and it really makes you feel like it's a place that you would want to work.
Absolutely.
Yes, and we both know Xenium. So when I bring that up, you know who that is. Well, you know what? Unfortunately, we are at our time. I mean, I know you and I could talk forever. We have a lot of things to say. I'm sure there's a lot more. Mark, I do have recurring guests on the show, Sarah Goodall being one, Karen Rayburn being one. I would love, love, love to have you back again. We can get more in depth about maybe even just weight loss in general.
Absolutely.
Specifically, because you and I know that really well. And I would love to invite you back again. I know we have Shay Keats coming back. Who talked to us about having a multi-generational workforce. She'll be back. We'll be talking about women in the workforce, just specifically how it feels to be a woman in the workforce and how those times are changing now. So look for that. But at the end of closing, Mark, I always ask the one question: is there anything that you think needed to be said that we didn't say today?
Well, I appreciate that, Kimberly. And we touched on it very briefly, but I'd like to expand on it. We talked a lot about new professionals and managers, but all of this, when it comes to our health and wellness, needs to start at the top. My ask of you, if you're running a company, if you're running a board of directors, if you're on the C-suite, you're managing a big team, and they're looking to you, they're saying, wow, I want to get there one day, or I need to follow their lead. And this not only comes with how you're acting as a professional, but how you're acting as a person. And the reality is how you show up, and how you show up from a health and wellness standpoint goes a long way. If they see that you're taking time out to exercise, if they see that you're taking time out to think about your health, if they see you're taking your time out to spend time with your family, this is important. That's a message that you need to share. So you need to talk about how you make time for that. But then the more important thing than that is helping your team, your company, really understand how they can do that for themselves. Because it's one thing for an executive with a big team, a lot of support to be able to do that. It's another thing for an individual contributor or a middle manager to be able to do the same thing. But installing a process, installing a communications channel where you're talking about how you're making yourself a priority will really, really help improve morale, increase retention, and ultimately get the results that your company needs. You have to do it, and time is now.
Very well said, Mark. I challenge everyone right behind you. I love that. That's a great challenge. Do it, do it, do it.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Mark, thanks so much for being a guest again. We really do appreciate you taking time out to talk to us today.
Thank you, Kimberly. It was wonderful.
You are so welcome. Don't forget to check the website, thehappyhealthyworkplace.com, for show notes and links to connect with Mark. And stay tuned for the next episode that we have with Mark. Should be coming soon. This is the close of the Happy Healthy Workplace podcast. Have a happy, healthy day. That's a wrap for today. The Happy Healthy Workplace podcast is now complete. Be sure to subscribe and join us weekly for secrets, solutions, or strategies that help you create a profitable business where people really want to work. This is Kimberly Ficklin, wishing you a happy, healthy day.